Oh, yeah.
All right, you're live. I don't know how much it's gonna pick up, but yeah, I don't know how good it is. And yeah, it's there. I just don't know how much it's gonna take.
There's more.
Okay. 1 o'clock.
All right. You running it, Kelly? You running it?
Please, if you
Okay.
would like to.
We're just gonna call this meeting to order. It's 1 o'clock at the Armory. It's a work session, no public input. It's for commissioners and council and our new representative for economic development to have some discussions concerning some of our challenges within the community and provide some comments on directions, the areas that we'd like for them to explore. And that said, Jonathan.
All right, well, thank you. It would be helpful if we could kind of go around the room. I know I've met most of you today, but if I could just get some introductions, that would be helpful. I'll start and then we'll kind of go around to my right. So I'm Jonathan Blake. I'm Senior Director of Planning at RJL Solutions.
Megan Hieronymus, Director of Business Development, so Southern Indiana and Southwest Indiana.
Kelly Harding, member of the council.
Corey Philly, County Council.
Becky Thorne, Commissioner.
Stan Gottlieb, Council.
Randy Cole, Commissioner.
Paul Brockman, County Council.
Dale Warner, County Council.
Brad Hart, County Council.
Pam Jaminski, Commissioner. Chris Hammack, Auditor.
David H. County Council.
Well, first of all, I always like to start these, first of all, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to be here. Thank you for the opportunity for us to be able to come and assist. When we take on any new client, it's not just another contract for us. It's really building a relationship with the community, building a relationship with elected officials, both at the local level and the state level, and making sure that we are advocating for the priorities that are important to you and your residents and constituents. So, it's always important for us to kind of have this kickoff meeting, really understand what it is that is important to both the council and commissioners. I envision having probably a couple of these as we move throughout this contract. It provides an opportunity for you to provide feedback to us on where we're excelling, where maybe we haven't met the mark. So there's always that constant communication. I know I've been in contact with Kelly and all the commissioners quite a bit on a recent project, and I'll be able to get an update on that here in just a few minutes. But I want all of you to know that you are free to call me anytime. I've got business cards with me, so I'll hand those out to anyone that hasn't gotten one yet. Call, text, email anytime. Happy to be a resource and help whenever we can. Just briefly about RJL Solutions, and then we can dive right into the agenda. We started as a government advocacy and lobbying group in West Central Indiana. Local leaders recognized that West Central Indiana was not well represented at the State House, and there was funding going to all the other regions in the state except for Terre Haute, West Central Indiana. So Rachel Leslie, our CEO, through some poking and prodding of local elected officials, said, hey, you really need to start your own firm and really start representing West Central Indiana. That's where we started, and we are now a company of 21. We now have 3 offices, including Evansville, which is where Megan is out of, and we're continuing to grow that footprint across the state. My team in particular does the economic development and community development work for our clients. However, we do have lobbyists and advocacy professionals that can assist. If we need to touch base with the legislator that maybe I don't have a relationship with. So we have a broad group of individuals that are professionals in their field, and it really takes all of us to make the project successful. So with that, today I did outline an agenda. This is one that, after speaking with commissioners a couple different times and hearing some of their concerns, I thought it would be good for us to understand some of the past challenges and opportunities that may have been missed, what the priorities are for the council and commission moving forward, so that we can put together a finite plan on these are the programs, initiatives, steps that we're going to take as we go through business retention and attraction, retention and expansion, attraction and solicitation, and recruitment, workforce development, and just really rebuilding those relationships with the community. So, sound good? Mm-hmm. Okay. So this is, the agenda is really meant to be a guide. We may diverge in different areas. We may stay longer on a certain area than others, and that's completely fine. I just like to kind of put this out in front of everybody to kind of help us get to thinking about all the different aspects that are important to our team. Following this, then what we'll do is Megan and I are going to be taking copious notes, mark our notes together, and then put together, formulate a strategy as we move forward with each of you. So with that, I want to start by kind of reflecting on the past, where we've been, how we've got to this point, and then where do we want to be. So as you think about things that were decisions that were made in the past, or policies or initiatives that were pursued in the past, what went well, what didn't go so well, what are some things that we need to know kind of getting started, either relationships in the community that we need to abridge and rebuild, or initiatives that we need to be aware of that the county is pursuing in the past. Is there anything that kind of stands out in these minds? And I realize that it may be challenging, but is there a specific area that has been a challenge in the past that?
In my opinion, PCDC has been good at local events, keeping our local community together, skating in the park, just fun things for families to do. Have nothing to say bad about them. However, me being from Northern Perry County, we see no development. I've been here 23 years and just nothing. So as a new commissioner, this is one of my main concerns of why and what and where, and basically I reached out to them a few times, got zero responses of what even was on the market, what direction do I go to. So I made my decision very quickly that we need to make some changes.
Sure.
This service wasn't happening.
I agree with Pam that, being in the northern end of our county, it's beautiful out there. And, we've got a great school corporation. We're close to the interstate. That's a big plus right there. We need something out there.
Has there been any type of push or initiative in the past, either at the county level or PCDC level, that would focus development in that area or try to attract?
I wouldn't
investments
know.
in that area?
We don't hear any of that.
I believe that there was discussion designating that area as potentially good for growth because of proximity to Interstate 64. I want to ask specifically if you all have dealt much with distribution companies. Like, a lot of corporations have distribution companies. That area is close to the interstate between Louisville, Cincinnati, St. Louis, and Evansville, and I'm aware that corporations such as Procter & Gamble have put distribution centers in smaller areas, but with proximity to larger areas, such as we all dealt much with, like say UPS, FedEx, Procter & Gamble. There's others, satellite distribution centers for Toyota.
So before I got to RJL, I spent 20 years in local government and did a lot of work in the distribution and logistics world. So we had attracted a UPS distribution center to our community. We had Home Goods. We brought in Guitar Center, Solitage, and several other. FedEx had a hub in our community. So familiar with those. you know, a lot of times people want to go directly to a logistics hub. They do increase property value, right? And they do generate revenue. They're not the highest revenue generator in terms of property taxes. So, you know, you want to balance that with other types of investments that would have personal property and investment as well. So racking systems and, you know, conveyor systems or manufacturing. Light manufacturing doesn't have to be heavy industrial, but wanting to balance that is
So-
usually
Have you dealt with anything like they come into an area where there was nothing like that, where they would just have their own freestanding operation, just that one, which theoretically might make it less competitive for labor or
Yeah, so the project in Brownsburg, it was around 1,100 acres. That was a greenfield site. We had to build road infrastructure, utility infrastructure in there, and then start attracting the developers to bring those warehouses. So we worked with groups like Loft and Scanel, and some of the other big warehouse and logistics players to build those.
another question that comes up, I used to be on the redevelopment commission in Spencer County, and I tried to do a distribution center there, but one of the questions was, can we get an adequate labor force? Well, that's some, can we get the numbers, to hire 50 or 75 or 100 or whatever?
Yeah.
You know,
Well, Paul, in that sense, a lot of people that live in the northern part of the county go to Du Bois County, Harrison
That's-
County, and Crawford County to work.
Exactly.
Why not bring them here to our county to work?
exactly, I agree with you.
Mhm.
You know, whenever I worked for Kimball 50 years ago,
Mhm.
you know, I said, let's hire the pair of counties, they know how to work, you know, so it's a, you know,
And it has an effect on fire departments too, because my past in fire departments is with volunteer fire department. If all of your workforce is going out of the county, they're not centrally located to
Mhm.
actually participate in fire protection.
Now, we do have a state correctional facility out there, but we get no revenue off that, do we, Randy? No, there's no revenue. But there's jobs, there's a lot of jobs.
You get the income.
Yeah, local income tax, you know.
They do some sort of study out in the northern part of the county. What exactly did that?
Like a sewer study, they did.
Is that basically what it was?
They
Several
did,
years
they
ago.
did a sewer study for 37 and also, is it 145 that hits there at Austin Junction?
when you get dog in.
So that was along 37 and
And 145.
It's been many years.
145.
It's probably been, what, 15 years,
Yeah.
maybe,
Mhm.
or more?
No, I don't believe so. I think it was done,
Like,
yeah, that's correct.
10 years?
I don't know how relevant it would be today, but that's one of our challenges is a sewer system. We currently, Tell City extends a force main to the prison.
Mhm.
And that's probably 4 or 5 miles from there to the interstate.
It's about 5 miles to the interstate.
Something like that. So I don't know whether, and I don't know what kind of experience you have in that, but one of our challenges will be, it's the egg and the chicken thing. We put in a sewer system and have no one to move in, then we need some sewer district to manage the thing. Or we try to lure somebody in, and they say, we'd like to come, but we have no sewer. It's, you know,
do you actually, along that line, do you have a regional sewer district or a county sewer district? Okay.
we have water systems, but no sewers. The whole sewer system, we have 2 sewer districts, one's Tell City, one's Camden, and Perry County. As far as I know, that's
Troy runs off until City.
where runs the Tell City. Camden used to, but now.
Yeah, they have their own,
There are no other ones I'm aware of. Right? They're down here on the Ohio River. That's,
but then on the other end, we have the Topa water that comes in.
Toka runs right down the interstate.
Yeah, it runs right down the interstate, runs through Leopold and all the way down to Magnet. Because when I lived in Magnet, we had the Topa water.
I think Patoka built a line into
Yeah.
the prison. So
Yes, it could have.
we have water resources, we just don't have a sewer system.
And who did you say, Tell City ran the water or the sewer to the prison?
Mhm.
It's a force main, and what they do, it's ran along 37. So it picks up prison, it picks up like Perry Central School, APTC, one of our other industries is on it. That's some of the bigger ones, along with some subdivisions on it.
And from what I'm understanding, or what I've been hearing, is that French Ridge Road, which is right across the road going, the 37 going into Prairie Central School, they're building a subdivision there. It's gonna be called the French Ridge subdivision.
That's what I was talking about the other day.
Yeah, I drove this morning. I
they're
was surprised to
working
see
on
a gravel road going up the hill.
Yeah, they're
Somebody
working
doing
on it.
something.
So I mean, that's more homes coming in.
But that's close to that force main.
Yes.
It crossed there to the clinic.
Yes, it's well right across there from the clinic on French Ridge Road.
It's not gonna be 30 lots. I have all those
I
notes
don't
back
have
there.
any
I
idea.
think it was 30.
Who's even doing that? I don't know.
David Lynch contacted me about it, so
Yeah,
that's,
I know he was doing the surveying on it.
yeah. So
But I mean, there you go, you got more opportunity there for, you have more opportunity there for people to
So the information.
come to the county and live.
Okay. And you said their plan was to connect to that force main now.
They did a study. I don't know. I don't think I ever read it even. Bernard and Lockmiller did it.
Okay.
It's
They,
been several years.
yeah, it was like $70,000 just spent on
Mm.
it. And part of the problem of it is I don't mind having a study, but we need to have the funding available or whatever to do it, because the study like there was no source of grants or anything at the time. They engaged them, so they didn't have a source of funding to put it in. And after about 5 years, it really is gonna be sketchy to pin anything upon it. And maybe the functionality, how it was gonna treat the area would be valid, but the cost would be relevant anymore.
Sure.
So,
You know, with that subdivision coming in there, you know, they have an excellent school system at Prairie Central. And, you know, that's gonna be more for more kids and children going to the school and participating in stuff and the parents participating.
So no regional sewer system or regional sewer district. We talked about the French Ridge Road, right?
French Ridge subdivision.
Okay. And then Troy, we talked about Troy is connected to Tell City. Who are the water suppliers?
Antro, they are kind of together
Okay.
because Antro and Troy Township have partnered together. And there used to be one called Northern Perry, but now Antro is actually operating that kind of in conjunction too. And then Patoka is like the northern part of the county generally, but I know, because I was having a discussion with the Antro people that they told me that Patoka built a large line in for the prison
Okay.
because Antro didn't have resources in proximity to the property that forced them to build that line for a single source use. So Patoka did have it there.
So there is water, you know, on that end,
On
you know,
that side.
but we're minus the sewage.
Right.
Patoka supplies water to
Everybody doesn't know.
because I have Patoka water, but I pay intro for my water.
See,
Oh,
Antro
so
actually,
so they sell it to Antro.
Antro does not have any wells or sources for water.
Okay.
They purchase from Tell City and they purchase from Patoka.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I don't know what, it's probably not relevant what percentages, but that's what
Who would be a good contact for us to reach out to?
We can get you.
Okay. Because it would be helpful to know what their capacity is.
We can get that.
Attracting, we're working with attracting business.
So you want them for all those places?
Yeah, any contacts that you
Antro,
have.
Patoka, and,
Tell City.
Tell City.
Because I know you had talked to Tell City about the Project Falcon, or, well, maybe you talked to the fire department.
Because I just want to know
What
how
their
the fire
maintenance
went
is.
down there and the capacities and what went on. That's where
Okay.
Now, speaking of water, I know some, we're supposed to have all this water. There are lots of areas in the county without water, and that's a problem, a big problem. So I don't know if we're gonna get to
That's
that.
why
but-
we're trying to work with different organizations through the federal government to try to get water lines ran, but we're running into a lot of barriers there because of the Hoosier National Forest. It's government-owned land, which owns over 66,000 acres in this county.
And they won't allow it.
They won't allow a water line to go through there.
Well, that's not, I don't think that's the problem. The problem is the cost to get it through there with no users.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
We can get an easement, but one of the
Yeah.
things with the easement, I don't know whether you realize this, it's an annual charge.
Yeah, they charge us for it,
The parks, or the national
Forest
parks.
Service charges
Yeah.
you every year
for,
for having that line go through the property.
that's right.
The utilities, the
no
electrical
users.
pay it, I mean, it's an annual, it's not like one of the. So,
Should-
And believe me, we have a lot of people in this county that do not have water. They've got fiber, but they don't have water.
one of our problems we have, and I just got off, because I wanted her to put together, and I've got an email on it. She has a certain ratio of so many people per mile on her water line, and she can fund paying for that, laying it. And what she does is charge, it's $20 or $25 additional on that bill for that line to recapture the amount of money they spend. So they're not a burden on the other ratepayers as they add new ones. But $20 or $25 doesn't get today's costs. Okra, I don't know, Kelly, I think you told me somebody did. There's no Okra money without, maybe Jackie told me this, that we don't have an eligible area in Perry County anymore without doing a financial survey.
Okay.
Or income's too high.
Yeah.
Everywhere. We had one district and they've taken it away from us now, but our income is too high. So what we have to, and what they've had in the past, once they go through a study, we have some individuals that are higher income that live here and they feel like it's their duty to fill out the paperwork. And we have some people that are somewhat lower income, so don't want to bother with it. And if you look back at the census stuff through the IRS returns, we're looking wealthier through one of these studies than what we really are. And that becomes a challenge. So then it just appears like, you've got plenty of money in the community that's charging for that more. So that's part of the problem.
You know, it's not just the northern end of the county that, like you were saying a while ago, that a majority of the people go outside of the county to work. It's all over this county. We have a lot of people that go to Du Bois County and
Kentucky.
Harrison County, Kentucky. I myself worked in Kentucky for 38 years.
Okay. So in terms of existing industries, I know Wet Wheels here. What are the other primary industries in the county?
Wapaka.
Which one?
Wapaka County.
Oh,
What am I gonna guess, 800-900?
Yes, anywhere between 800 and 900 people. We have Maggot and Troy.
What do you guess them to be, 100?
Did you say mega?
Maggot,
MEGGI.
MEGGIT. We have SERS.
Yeah, maybe I should,
I don't think we
they,
should go down the guessing game.
they do aeronautical.
Yes,
Okay.
contract.
and then we have SERS.
BTTC.
Is Megan still in there? Is it now,
Yes,
Parker Hannaford?
What was
no,
that?
it's Maggot.
What was, no, it's Megan, yeah.
It's still Megan?
Maggot.
And you-
SERS, SIRS.
We also.
I think it's
TTC. I think Parker Hannaford.
Well, it's ATTC.
ATTC.
Manufacturing.
Manufacturing.
Yes, it's on the automobile line.
Okay.
We have Lazy Boy.
Those chairs.
Oh, okay.
It used to be Best Chairs, but Lazy Boy
Bought it.
bought it.
And that's manufacturing as well. It's-
Yes, furniture.
That's it.
Huh?
But the-
Yep, we
Hospital, Corey, how many you employ out there? I'm not gonna guess.
320 maybe.
So it's a
Major employer.
I should drop my laptop back.
I had it on that road down,
You mentioned prison.
the prison,
Yeah.
yes. Oh, gosh, I don't know how many's out there.
What's the name of the prison?
Branchville Correctional Facility.
Bradsfield?
Branchville.
Branchfield, sorry.
That's a close town.
You know, the school systems.
Yes, the 3 school systems.
Moser or CRH.
Now, I can't remember down there in Troy,
Oh, we have like.
Cole Kim,
KK, is that KK?
Well, we have
KK.
that, we have that.
KK, that's the,
You have got
We could get a list.
We'll get a list,
small,
I don't wanna leave anybody out, but
small service sector to the boundary that probably employ, 20, 30 people each. So,
Okay.
I mean, even like, I don't know, it's 40, 40.
yeah,
Kington, very central to the city, like Gail said, schools.
they employ quite a few.
Do you have one school system or do you have multiple?
3,
You have 3, okay.
we have Carrollton, Tell City, and Troy.
I mean, does Walmart count? They have a lot of employees.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
they do.
Yeah, they do.
They're major.
Council, Tell City, Perry Central.
And the hospital is Perry County Memorial?
For now, hopefully.
Okay. So we had started identifying, kind of moving on here, we had started identifying some of the challenges and roadblocks. That some of those came up when we were talking about reflecting on the past, but what challenges or barriers have you experienced as elected officials or, working with former economic development groups that we should be aware of? Or what challenges or barriers have you experienced as you've been pursuing an initiative? So it could be public pushback on an initiative or a desire not to see funding spent on a certain program or initiative. It could be, gaps in coordination. We've talked quite a bit about communication being a barrier in the past. Just would like to hear what some of those challenges have been.
I think communication's number 1. We never got any information on anything.
It's a lack of transparency.
Yeah, lack of transparency.
We want to be involved in the decisions. We're the elected officials that the people put here to make the decisions for the community, and we want to help direct that. Where where the community's going, what we hear from these constituents every day, they're telling us,
You know,
telling
it's
us
just
what they
like-
want us to work on, so.
It's like if somebody said, okay, we want to build a nuclear power plant here. I'm not for that. But some people may be, but I'm not,
Right.
because of my community.
I think misinformation
I was
sometimes.
gonna say, a lot of misinformation.
A lot.
We just got a new vape shop and, all of a sudden the commissioners are thrown under the bus, because why would they bring a vape shop? I mean, once again,
How
just,
dare you do that?
I know, like, we need another vape shop.
Too many people
That's right.
stay, too many people stay on that computer all day long and try
Yes.
to find stuff that.
Well, I just think it's misunderstandings too. People maybe just don't have a general idea of how the government works or how decisions are made or who makes decisions or the free market or who can, take their own money and invest in whatever they want or, things like that. Sometimes it just comes down to they don't understand. So,
In terms of like boards and commissions that report to you, the council of the commissioners, do you feel like you have a good group of individuals that understand the roles and responsibilities that each of them play?
As far as what boards,
yeah.
Well, I mean,
Not really.
do you have
Redevelopment.
redevelopment?
Planning and zoning.
Redevelopment is, I sit on that, and David sits on that, and we're currently, we're two of the members, and we're currently looking for we're looking for direction from the county right now. What do you want us to do? So I'm glad we're having this, because I do feel like the county, like the officials need to be directing them in what their efforts are to help further, grow this community or whatever it is that we're wanting to do. So we're kind of at a standstill right now until we figure that out.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
We need the elected body or in charge of what is going on in Perry County as far as infrastructure and that. I mean, they're the elected people. They can be unelected, whereas you have non-for-profit running it, then they don't have to answer to anyone. They're not elected, so. And I think the non-for-profits are supposed to be answering to the commissioners, but they're the infrastructure of the county.
Right.
So,
Because we're funding them.
I think people like to know what's going on. They like to be informed. They like to, people can get behind a cause or something if we're gonna grow the community or whatever, if they are aware of what's going on. But when we're not aware, we can't communicate that to them. So some things I realize have to be confidential because of, potential things coming in or not, or growth or whatever. But at some point, it needs to be communicated and communicated properly and,
Well, and then if you don't know, then the
Yeah.
public starts to lose trust.
that's exactly right.
Because as the elected official, right, like, you're
That's
supposed
right.
to be the know, you're
Yeah.
supposed to know everything, so I get that.
so I think PCDC changed their mission statement instead of going out and bringing companies in, that they're just taking care of what we have and building on that. So,
Is there a local chamber of commerce?
Yes.
there is.
And it's separate from PCDC?
It's in the
Yes.
same office,
In the same office though,
the
but
same
they're separate?
space.
Okay.
It's in the same building. in that area.
Aren't they
I
funded
believe,
by
right?
PCDC?
No,
No.
no.
Is the chamber Perry County?
Yeah, County Taylor, I'm actually on the board.
That they're in that
Are
office.
they pretty active?
They rent the office, yeah.
So,
Randy Ridge,
no,
Sarah Zelli.
Sarah's everything.
We also have a convention of visitors bureau, which would get innkeepers tax too.
Okay.
That
which is for tourism. I would just like the focus is to be more in line with what they, what their mission is, if you're
Each of
the
those
chamber and your
organizations.
small business and your economic development, is economic development and your tourism is tourism. I just feel like sometimes the lines are a little blurred and I understand some of the crossover, but I think when we get away from our core mission, then we can't focus on anything because we're trying to do everything and it just gets blurry. So.
Yeah.
It's no disrespect to anybody. It's just, I don't know, over the years, that's just how it's kind of been. So that's how I feel. It's no problem working together, but
From the communication standpoint, does the county have, what methods of communication do you use to get information out to the public? Do we have, I know we've got the website, we have Facebook.
County
we have-
website, Facebook.
we don't have those.
Oh,
We
social
do
media.
not have
Oh, no,
Facebook.
the
The
county.
county does not have
Yeah,
Facebook.
kind of
No.
There are some offices that
I
have
have one like
taken
this.
it to get their own, but the county does not have Facebook.
No, the county just has their website and they do the advertising for jobs, meetings and stuff like that, which is good. I mean, they just revamped that, didn't they? Just revamped all that.
PCDC has their own
Right.
website.
Actually, that leads me to kind of a follow-up question. So looking at PCDC's branding, they have used the Perry County logo and then added Development Corporation underneath. Did the logo, because it matches the counties, did the logo start with the county and then PCD used it, or did it start with PCDC and then the county used it? Do you know?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
You qualified. David over there came on in 2016. And everybody, 2017, everybody else here is younger than that.
Okay.
And it was before
Good before.
2017, I think that logo was developed.
What,
You remember?
I thought he was,
Yeah, I think,
My computer was-
I
Stan,
remember,
maybe you dribbled in there and you
I was
left.
back in 2010.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh.
okay, then you know.
And I think the logo came from,
This logo, the Perry
actually,
County.
Yes, that one.
PCDC,
I'm not
yeah.
That might be PCBC.
It's on top of
But they-
every one of our letterheads, right? That we even have.
Pretty sure.
That's not the one we used to use years ago.
I don't know where that even came from. It started to be used, I don't know. Maybe for the
I think
branding.
they designed that back in 2010-ish.
The old one was.
The other director of
Rivers,
PCDC.
Forest and all that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, okay. I think I remember.
That's what I think that's probably the chamber did that, you know, years and years ago. Thanks. The one, the river and the forest.
We'll do some digging and see what we can find out. Just something that I was thinking about, because as we're trying to communicate from the county, it could start to get confusing if it's the same logo and that's slightly different, so.
Yeah, it'd be confusing.
Communication. What about funding? What funding has the county pursued? Obviously ready, but in terms of other economic development, I'm sorry.
I don't know very much about Ready,
Okay.
just what I read online, and, you know, updates that we got, that I don't know where we're at with it, and I think we need to get on top of that right away.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm collecting information from Indiana First and Swided on the ready projects.
We get community crossing grants for our
You do
county
too.
roads,
Okay.
yes.
Good.
Well, we haven't done it for what, how many years now? 5? Maybe more.
Probably since it's done.
We get quite a few, and if I brought along my Region 15
Yeah.
handout, then I could give it to you. We just had them come in for a meeting and I'm not exactly who through, but we got $12 million through the railroad down there.
Oh, okay.
We currently are involved with, it's Tell City doing it, but it's on cleaning up the old hospital.
Okay.
It's a grant for that, and then they're gonna, it's got some hazardous waste problems. They're cleaning that up.
And they announced that that was cleaned up and the asbestos was removed and it's time for demolition.
I think
Is
so.
it?
Yeah, it's not
That's what
demolition,
Jared
now,
told me
asbestos
when I
is
met
out.
with him.
Okay, because I knew they found that there was an old fuel tank, I think, down there for a diesel generator that at some time they found on the site. I know that's another one they didn't realize was there. But they also, Region 15 currently has brownfield money where they'll come in and check and, I think get you to maybe through phase 2 and then have some additional ideas for remedial and maybe sources to clean something up. That's basically our volunteer for private property.
Right.
It's a current grant that's ongoing. Most of our grants is going to.
They do an excellent
They do a
job
good
on
job
that.
for that. Good.
Nathan Hale is,
Actually, I was on a call with him earlier, so. And I will connect with him.
he comes in to our meetings and gives us reports and.
Good.
He's very open, transparent about everything.
He's attempted to get us different grants for water lines.
It's be like USDA.
Yes.
But,
And see, USDA at one time, they came in and said they'd buy down the project so that it was affordable. And at that time, they had determined, I think it was $75 or $80 per month for 4,000 gallons of water. Is what they had a cap on, and anything above that, they would buy it down. That's how Canton got their sewer plant. They bought that project down so it was affordable for the rest of the residents there. So whether they still have funding and money available, that's always a challenge. Craig McGowan is the guy we used to deal with, he's in Indianapolis.
actually, I think it's not Craig McGowan. 2 weeks ago. Yeah, 2 weeks
He just
ago.
came, he was in our region here serving us, and he went to Indianapolis, took a job up by one notch, I think.
Yeah, I just got with him, so I can touch base with him.
Kenton was looking for a streetlight project for LED streetlights, and I reached out to Nathan recently and asked him if he could help me find some money for them. And they're very helpful anytime we need something. I'm always looking for a grant. People reach out to me, so I'm always emailing him. I feel sorry for him. He really earns his money with me. So he said, we're gonna get you one. I promise. We'll find one for you. So I'm always looking
I
for
mean, there's grant money out there for everything, people just say no.
Yeah.
You have to ask.
Yeah, well, then you have to constantly be scrubbing
Right.
those databases, and we've got staff that can do that. So you talked about community crossings. What other transportation-related funding have you procured in the past, or even just pursued? Or if you're aware.
But we're waiting right now to hear if we're gonna get any relief from this flooding. Because we have 4 road slides and 32 as of this morning, county roads underwater.
Okay.
So it was declared a declaration of emergency yesterday for flooding. So the paperwork's there, so when the money's released, we can apply for it.
Apply for it. Okay.
Because those road slides are not cheap.
Right.
I've been interested in the Lilly money that they had with the ready money,
Yep.
the $250 million for the blight clearance,
Blight-
those type
blight
of things.
elimination.
I think we have a big problem with blight, and it's not just in the cities, it's in the county too. It's just we have some everywhere, it's sprinkled everywhere, and I wanna see if we could pursue that. I mean, I've brought it up several times. I don't know what to do with it, I mean, I just know that it's out there, and I know that there are, areas, I'm sure Tell City Council and Troy would like to be a part of that, and then the areas out in the county, if we can look at some kind of blight clearance program or creating a program so that we can get some of those funds to do something, to clean up our community so that we can have more assessed value and
Certainly.
just better areas.
Have you heard about the Lilly Gift Program giving Indiana funds for tomorrow?
No, I have not heard of it.
So that's a program we actually just are wrapping up some projects for their 8th round, which was last year's funding.
Mhm.
We anticipate that they will be releasing additional funding. That money can be used, it's kind of twofold. You can conduct a concept or a plan as part of, as part of the initial funding, and then you can go and apply for actual implementation dollars as well.
Okay.
So that's a great program. We just completed 4 community plans under that funding program. Between $50,000 and $70,000 is what they give for planning. You can get more, but the implementation side, you can get up to, I think it's like $5 million. And it's all community-based projects.
How long has this been available?
Well, Gift 8 was last year. I probably, if I had to guess, probably 10 years.
Why haven't we never heard anything about this? I mean, that's what we have economic development for.
It's a great program.
Okay, so let me go into that. Is it possible that we could utilize that kind of funding to extend water lines?
Potentially, yeah, because you can use it for infrastructure.
And see, conceptually, that's why I called Jackie, because if they can contribute $20 or $25 per resident, besides the tapping fee, to the project, then that'll stretch the dollars farther.
Right.
Because we gave them some ARP.
But
And I asked her then, I said, are you charging those individuals $20 or $25 additional? And she said, no, because we don't have a loan.
okay,
And they always go to the regulatory group, even though they're not underneath the Indiana Regulatory Association. But they want to make sure they don't do something that is a problem.
sure.
And with this not costing them anything, then the people that will hook onto this line will pay that fee. So somewhere where we can get a little bit out of the general public as a contribution to the project and then back into it with additional funds.
Sure.
It's, you've got to realize that right now our water sources are at the river.
Right.
Let me paint this picture. for
Sure.
you. Beautiful location in Perry County. Seeing, look at the river, everything's lovely.
Not now.
Well,
Twice a week, you can fire up your pickup truck, put a tank on the back of it, drive to town, fill it up, and drive back home so you have Are you moving? It's beautiful, but are you willing to take on that task? Most people will say, no. So whenever we get the water, then we have a chance for that. We've got the fiber coming in. And what I look at when we talk about economic development projects and the way the legislature currently is after property tax, and now they're looking at personal property. So when you have a project that's a $50 million project, and they're cutting not only the property tax, but personal property tax, and they tell you to make it up with local income tax, they need to be living here.
Yeah.
They can't be living in the county next to us and driving in because we have this new big project, because that doesn't bring any revenue to us. So we have to make that available so those people actually relocate here.
Choose to move.
And we do have a couple of people that make good money, educated, they moved here because they just like to live, it's safe, quiet, and they're here. And I'm not sure we promote that as well as we should.
We have,
But again, we cannot ask them to say, get the old truck. And the next thing, and I'll add this in for Pam, you gotta drive in a gravel road, you have to have a four-wheel drive truck during the winter to get in and out. That's a county road.
And you have quite a few dirt or gravel roads.
no, come on.
250 miles of them roughly. And a lot of, we, at some time, I don't know this is a fact, but I suspect that people didn't want to take care of their driveways, so they convinced the commissioners to turn it into a county road so that the county could take care of it. We have a lot of what I class as driveways. One or two people live at the end of it.
But it's technically a county.
We have to
road.
They took it over as a county road, so now we're dealing with it. What was the number, right? 300 and some roads had this morning? I didn't realize we had
I think
that.
308.
Yeah, 308.
It was a bunch.
We need a road plan.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just,
380.
380.
naming the roads. Okay,
See, like right now, I know a road that is 4.1 miles long. And part of it, it's paved on both ends. There's a 2-mile stretch in between. That's gravel. There's 16 people that live on that gravel
That
part.
gravel section.
16 homes on that gravel part, and that's not including the landowners. That's nuts. And one of them being our governor. He don't live there, but he has property there.
That property.
And that actually runs an east and west road, which years and years ago, when they made the plan for an escape route out of the county, that was actually one of the roads
That
that they made for an escape route out of this county, if we ever had to get out of the county quick.
Have you guys assisted anybody in a road plan?
So, again, when I spent local government, I did several thoroughfare plans, road maintenance plans, capital improvement plans, so, very familiar. The bulk of my, work when I worked at Brownsburg was transportation related, transportation and redevelopment. And then I got into parks and economic development later, but.
Sounds like we've left as a county money on the table for community crossings.
Yes, we did for a while, till last year.
I think we were given a lot of misinformation on what
Sure.
we can use the funding for.
Sure.
So I think
I know last year
start with
we,
a fresh set of eyes, we can really start
Yeah,
cracking away on some of these roads.
well, and I've conducted quite a few like road safety audits, which you have to go through as you're wanting to go through a certain section of roadway to get, either state or federal funding sometimes. Sometimes you have to do it, you don't always have to, but, those are always, sometimes you don't realize just how bad conditions are until you actually walk that road, not drive it, but actually walk it, and you can start to see, safety concerns and issues that could creep up and create liabilities for tort claims or other liabilities. So
I've seen roads in this county that's been paved that go nowhere. Nowhere. It's just dead ends, there it is.
Okay.
Why?
So a road plan.
I don't know. I call it the
A
road to
maintenance plan
nowhere.
or something like that.
Yeah.
Like on a rotation. I know that the commissioners just purchased or agreed to purchase that software that Vitalix last fall.
Right, the graded roads.
It scores the roads. It's
Yeah.
a scoring
Is it a
system.
PACE
Uses
rating?
AI.
Pacer rating.
I don't know that that's what it is, but
Yes, it is.
it does, analyzes the
Analyze the
cracks
road.
and the potholes and the thickness and what all.
Yeah.
And it
And
tells,
it's
tells
actually-
you which roads are the worst and which roads are,
Help you prioritize.
yes,
actually
absolutely, we
is
need to do
good.
that.
Because it does the signage, the bridges, the culverts, the ditches.
Oh, so it's almost
I
like
think,
LiDAR.
I think Randy and
Right.
Pam are using it and driving the
Right.
roads, so
It can save a
it's not
lot of,
really their job, that's what they're doing.
it can save a lot of time.
I'm thankful that the commissioners are willing to do that.
Have you dealt with community crossings much on road grants?
Yeah.
Have you ever dealt with anything with community crossings to allow gravel roads to be gravelled and ditched?
I have not, but I know that it is possible,
Yeah, working with,
but I have not. So all of our roads were paved, but the roads were deteriorating quickly. I mean, to the point where it was pushing mud through the pavement, so we had to go in and do a full depth reclamation.
do you feel a community crossings grant could be applied for, which would allow for gravel to be purchased, gravel the roads, and do ditching for drainage on those roads?
I don't see why it couldn't be. If it's something that we want to look at, on a case by case basis, but I don't see why it couldn't be a solution.
There's a lot of that in
Mhm.
this county. So,
And the good thing with community crossings is the match is low, or in some cases, there's no match. It allows you to stretch your dollars further.
I'm pretty sure it'd be a match, but have you ever dealt with Cassandra Hudson with community crossings? Or
Is she your point of contact?
I end up,
What NDOT district are you in? Vincent.
Hudson.
Hudson.
The one thing too, with water being up, people have to drive routes that they normally don't drive, is signage.
Yeah.
I've had people stop me and ask me, where does this road go?
Road signage?
Right, well, they might tell you the name of the road, but then tell you which way to go to Rome, or how it's sixth or Derby. If you don't know the road,
I had someone reach out to me from Spencer County yesterday, and they actually mark it on their GIS, and then they put it out for everybody to know what roads are closed and where the detours are and stuff, and I thought, that's really nice, we need to,
But I know what Gail's saying. I don't want to make it around.
yeah,
But if I was
You
out
don't,
driving
yeah.
through the county,
there's one lady who's lived here for 7 or 8 years,
you know,
but with water this high,
Yeah.
she's had to go around, every route she hasn't done before.
Yeah.
And didn't know how to get home. The water came up before she got back home.
Yeah.
So she had to go a different route, which is what I'm looking at going home tonight. The third route's gonna be shut off.
You may need a helicopter.
yeah.
Well, that's what one said.
Well, my
Thinking
drive,
kayak, but
15 minutes and 45 minutes, and from 12 miles to 30 miles. Just
This morning.
one way to get to town. But I've always lived in the country, so I know these roads. It's, you know,
Yeah, since we were talking about the water, I hate to get off subject, or if this isn't the right time, that's fine. But I was thinking about the other utilities. There are underserved areas in our community that do not have adequate, like internet, such as Cannleton. They can't, there's a lot of areas inside the city limits of Cannleton and right outside of Cannleton that cannot get adequate internet service or cell service. And there's a lot of other areas that don't have the cell service as well. But is that something that we could get assistance with? Because, I mean, this is 2025, and, you need those things. Those are just basic, I mean, it's no different than water to me.
Yeah.
You have to have
So
those
the
things.
BEAD program is a great.
Let me go a little into that. Talk to PSC about that
Yes, yeah,
signage. And apparently Comcast is in Canada.
Okay.
And they have stated that they have sufficient service and speed.
So
So,
they have
But
not
they don't.
pursued.
It's-
so what happens then
on
is
paper.
they kind of shut out that program in the dollars.
Okay.
But I think you can poll anybody you can, and they won't agree to Comcast as an acceptable service. Now, PSC is in there, we have it at solid waste, I think they have it at City Hall.
Yeah, certain areas, like the main,
Yeah, but they have not, because they need, I mean, it's too costly to put it through the whole town for the revenue, but if they would get the grant through the BEAD program, they would do it, but right now, they said Comcast appears to be serving, it's not an underserved area, so that's what's going to happen. He said eventually, as they bring the speeds up, Comcast could not supply the higher speeds, and at that time, they'd love to be able to get it open for them. That's one of the challenges in county, but again, it's just the perception that it's served.
and it's not. It looks like that on paper, but if you go there, I've tried for 2 years to get somebody down here from the FCC or the Utility Regulatory Committee or anybody to listen. I have tons of emails, tons of phone calls that I've made, and I just keep aggravating them until somebody comes down here and sees that this is not true, that they do not have adequate service.
I've been in contact with, here, about a year and a half ago, a survey went out about people not having cell phone coverage. And, got a great response off of it. And then I contacted Pepper Mahurin, she's with AT&T, and, that's about as far as it went.
Too hilly.
Yeah, she said-
Well, we can get those boosters.
She told me that,
I'm gonna look at those opportunities.
she told me that Calton, especially Calton, is sitting in a bowl like this, and, with the hills and all that. But this is 2025.
Right. So Cannleton has access technically to Comcast, but in terms of where you were headed with it being kind of a low area,
Mhm.
is cellular service bad?
It's bad.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And how are they gonna grow and
Is it all
increase their assessed value?
carriers, all carriers? or
It's
just-
bad. I've had
It's
3
hit and
areas.
miss.
Generally, when somebody builds a tower, everybody hangs on it, so there's no tower saving. And my understanding was, if I'm correct now, they turn the Kentucky ones down,
Yes,
so they don't come across to.
Really?
I can sit on my front porch before I got my fiber. I can sit on my front porch and look across the river to Cloverport, Kentucky and see the tower and have no service.
It's,
One thing to make note of, Cannleton had a sewer plant in the middle of their town, and they received funding to clean that up. I don't know exactly how many acres it is, but it's a large interior part of their community that's now, they could develop it and do something with it. So
That's,
anything that
can play.
that's 30 acres there,
is it,
30 acres.
and it's right in the center part of the town. So it might be.
And it used to be a sewer plant.
Yes, it was.
Okay.
There's
It went
still-
back
Sewer
up.
pipe.
The city ended up with it.
The city's got it, and they got grants to clean, do a lot of cleanup down there, but it's all flat, it's all,
They have a lot of challenges in Hamilton because of their funding. I mean, they have one of the highest tax rates, but they just don't have a lot of money to do things. And basic infrastructure, it's a challenge, and so I think there's
Long
opportunities.
term, you would think they would have, technology, get satellites in the air. We don't have to worry about the hills and valleys that drop down on you,
Going back to that, the other thing you need to be aware of is that 30 acres of top has the drain from, so it's not being down in the bowl,
Right.
most of the river's still behind the flood wall, so it's protected.
it's all flat. There's about 3 roads that goes into it.
And in Hamilton is, here we go again, I'm getting on something. But, it's one of the entrances to our community from Kentucky. We have the bridge from Kentucky that we have an entrance into our community. And, the interstate is an entrance into our community. Troy is an entrance into our community. I think if we could look for opportunities or grants or things to revamp those areas or work with those communities to make them really welcoming and inviting and I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not trying to put anybody down that it's not, but I think that there could be improvements for sure.
Sure.
And, it's the first thing you see when you come into Perry County. We want it to be very inviting and welcoming. So
Sure. So as we kind of think about opportunities for the future, where we want to prioritize our efforts, I kind of look at 5 and 6 there in the same vein, because we've started talking about opportunities to improve roads, infrastructure. What other assets do you have that we should look to build on? Either workforce, culture. When we talked about industries earlier, what is it that your stakeholders are wanting? What do you hear from the community? Just in general about where they want to see Perry County go?
I hear a lot of people want things for the younger generation and to bring our children back and to have more opportunities for them and future generations, diversify our workforce, I'm very thankful for what we have and all of our employers and all of our businesses and industry and everything. But if we can find some other options for them to have as well, to encourage them to come back.
I don't put any industry down in Perry County because I'm really proud of what we have. But there's a lot of people that don't want to go to work in a foundry. They don't want their children to go to work in a foundry. And there could be a medical reason, there could be, whatever. It's a good paying job.
Right.
And all that. It's hot, it's dirty, and it's nasty. And I'm thankful for the people that go in there and do the job.
Yeah.
But then we have the hospital. Corey works at the hospital, and they employ a lot of people.
On the point of diversification, though, we've got Web Wheel, VACA, ATTC, that's a significant portion of the employment in this community, but that's all associated with the automotive industry.
Mhm.
And if that takes a big kick, the whole community can take a big kick.
Yeah, see, the foundry's a cast iron, goes to Web Wheel, they machine it, sell it for a truck aftermarket, I think, or OEM, I'm not sure which one.
Sure.
That's what they do. Similar parts you build, take it to ATTC.
Okay.
There are different rotors and that, different automobiles, they machine it, sell off to multiple different ones. So it's all foundry, automotive related.
Okay.
So
We have
it's
a lot of eggs in that basket,
Then we have
which I'm
a-
thankful for. I'm very thankful for that, and I want to keep them and
We have a warehouse.
sustain and grow them as well.
We have a warehouse in Troy, KK, and they do all the storing for, well, not all of it, but the majority of it for Web Wheel and Watonka.
So do they
truck.
store the,
Rotors, knuckles,
once it's manufactured, they store the product, or do they store the raw material? or-
they store both.
Oh, okay.
see what they do is down there, let's say for instance, I'm a backhaul trucker. I'll pull into Troy, pick me up a load, haul it someplace. If necessary, it may be a mixed load, I might have to stop at 3 locations. But it'll all be put together at Troy, put on a truck and watch it go. So that way, they handle that, and then the foundry then doesn't have to get into the logistics of it.
KK is located out of Wisconsin.
So really, what I'm hearing is, we've got significant investment in the automotive industry, and we should be looking at opportunities for adjacent industries that aren't automotive, but more diversification of those industries.
If we can
Yes, we
pick up,
absolutely do.
if we can pick up someone that's either a service provider to the existing industries or a complementary type industry to them, where we can expand our automobile. So it's not a bad thing to be known as an automobile hub, because we're gonna continue to drive. That'll happen. So there may be a downturn, that may be something we have to deal with, but we don't wanna give that up, just because we have a lot.
Yep.
At the same time, if we can find other opportunities outside of that business, that would give us some stability, also opportunity for our kids to return back home in certain specific areas that they may be educated for. So, I think both. I wouldn't turn my back on either one.
Sure.
I don't know that we've got, and I look at it, one of the things that I really struggle with is I think we need to put an effort out, and we could probably do that more than you, to see what's available in site locations. And what I mean by that, if Brad knows the farmer over here that he's known his whole life, and he has 150 acres of relatively decent ground, Brad can go over to him and say, would you ever consider? He'll not throw him out. He may never talk to us.
Sure.
But if we actually would, as a group, go out and see what might be, and the farmer might tell me right now, I'm planting beans and that, I have no interest. But at least you've initiated contact, you say, you know, maybe I'd consider it, you know, let me know if something comes along, so you put a question mark on that piece of ground. So we can actually get us some type of an inventory available, so that when you get a notification that, hey, this might fit for you guys, do you have it? Brad's talked to the farmers, if we've got an opportunity.
Yeah.
Would you even consider doing that?
Yeah.
So I think the approach on the local level with the real estate makes more sense than trying to have somebody outside of our community come in. So we
Sure.
can build these different plots in here, and maybe in 10 years, the guy will call Brad and say, I'm ready to sell.
Well, we'll use Zoom Prospector, which is a state run program. It's a subscription service, but the state gives us access to that. And we can, you know, working with you, we can identify those parcels that would be good for development, where either they're already listed for sale or the farmer or whoever says, hey, I might be interested in this. So that when those opportunities come through, like a project file down to work, you know, some of the
See,
others.
I'm thinking that at some point, we're gonna have to determine some type of an inventory of sites that we need to develop. Some way or another, we need to fund them.
Yeah.
So they're actually, we don't have to have the finished lot, but we need to have something that doesn't look like a mine.
Something that's shovel ready. Yeah. And, you know, go ahead.
I'm thinking this might be a good time, since we're thinking in this direction, because on the national level, we're wanting to bring companies back that has moved out.
Right.
Okay, so if we can be
Onshore.
proactive and know that this could be one of the sites for one of those companies that want to move back to us, then,
One of the things we will do initially is just kind of take an overall view of the county, you know, what opportunities are there for development, and really start to identify those primary growth areas. You know, where does it make most sense for growth to happen immediately, so that we're not recommending, you know, if this is a community and we've got this 100-acre parcel out here, but we're not going after that yet because we've got 80 acres here, and we can assemble that with another 20-acre parcel. So really trying to build on the community infrastructure that you have, rather than running 3 miles out of town to pull water and sewer out there, since it's already a challenge. And so really trying to methodically grow those communities in a way that does not put additional strain on the systems, whether it's water, sewer, gas, whatever.
See, and like Randy was saying, you know, about, and I call them mushroom plants, you know, as far as auto industry, which is what we have some auto around here.
Sure.
You know, the mushroom plants like Toyota, you know, they have a plant that does over here that does some upholstering for them. They plant over here that does glass for them, and it's all shipped out.
Yeah.
You know, and they're mushroom plants is what they are.
We're kind of in an area here with the other assembly plants that we're going a lot of different directions. And I think 64 and some type of resolution to the sewage problem out there. You'd have to talk to see what ground's available, but I really believe that's an opportunity.
Yeah.
Simply because of 64 and the ability to hit, you know, anywhere 5 miles down 37 in that area that we could develop, because it would be quick and out, and then from there you can go anywhere.
As long as you get a Buc-ee's out by 64, that's all I'm worried about.
Is that the measure of success right
That's
there?
not bad, as it says right there, Buc-ee's.
It is crazy.
My sister loves Buc-ee's. Applebee's.
I do too.
They opened one in
Who doesn't?
Smithsboro, Kentucky.
Yeah.
It gives me anxiety seeing
I
those
did.
cars.
Yeah,
I love it.
Oh, that's.
You're like,
You know, I do want to say that like 15, 20 years ago, we had something in this community that I think was really beneficial that went away. It was a call center and it employed, I don't know, I mean, don't hold me to this, maybe 150, 200 people. And it had, the jobs they were not minimum wage. They weren't the highest paying jobs, but they were, at that time when minimum wage was, it was $6 or $7 and they were making $12, $13, $14, $15. That was a really good job for people around here. And it just went away. And I don't know the reason or anything, but I thought, there's, again, getting back to, there's some people who cannot work in industrial settings. There's some people who can't work in other types of settings, but they can sit down at a desk and do the customer service job. That was a really good thing for this community. And I think it really hurt us whenever it went away.
Yes, it did.
So it's something like that, more.
What was the name of that?
Accent.
It was started,
Accent.
Yeah, they were a call center for Sprint.
I don't know if that's a possibility, but that's what I mean by diversifying, that's a different type of
And that building
option.
was
Or
actually.
growing the medical
670.
community or what other kind of services we have, more professional services that we can bring younger folks back into.
Along the line of keeping folks here, what facilities do you have that would allow the aging population to age in place? So that would not require them to move outside the county, to go to a nursing facility or some type of, older adult facility.
We'll let you answer this, Stan.
No. What, do you mean like, yeah, like the Twilight Towers, we have that is like a. Yeah, something like that, I don't know all their, that's what I think of it as, we have that, we have, the villas down here over the hill, are right close to the nursing home, but they're still independent living, they just might have some assistance. Yeah, those
They
type
have
of things,
assistance.
that what you mean? Yeah, I'm not sure, I think they do, they might have some requirements.
The ones
One's right next to.
The new ones on 7th Street.
I don't think they do anymore.
I don't think
I
they
think
do
you
it about
mentioned
anybody.
I think originally it was that way.
I'm not sure
and then
what all their
they
rules
had to
are,
change
but
it to
I
be
see
a-
that as something like that. I know
Yeah,
that's
but,
the Twilight
you know,
Zone.
What about the ones by the old hospital?
Oh, the Springs, you can be any age,
You
but
can
yeah, that's,
Oh.
it's kind of
what
a,
about,
the cost is more like retirement.
So we have some, not a whole lot.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably opportunities for that as well, because then it would free up homes, people want to downsize their homes, they don't want stairs, they don't want to have to take care of a whole bunch of stuff, and so maybe there is an opportunity for the 55 and older, or, the more retirement age.
In terms of housing, how is the community, are they receptive to development in terms of new housing opportunities? And if so, what does the community prefer? And then you may say that they don't care, but, some communities, the residents, the existing population, they don't want apartments, they don't want, townhomes, they want single family, large lot. Is there a preference here as to?
I would say most are one residential. I think we do have an aging population that wants the townhomes and more condos.
in the very southern end of the county where I live, I've noticed there's been, there's a home sold to some people with some children from Arizona, one from Michigan City. They want to get away from the city.
Yep.
They want the small rural areas, low crime rate with all the amenities. They can drive 30 miles to Orangeburg, 50 miles to Evansville. That they want a more calm for their children.
Yeah.
Mainly.
Being we're an aging community and I'm pretty old,
Okay.
I know what we need.
No.
We
I'm all
need
ears.
one level, okay, no stairs going upstairs. We need small yards so you don't have to mow a big yard.
Take care of it, yeah.
And, that's pretty good, all we're looking for, we don't.
Okay, it's because I'm quite a bit younger than him.
Great.
We need it all. Stan wants it flat.
Yep.
Not much effort, he can move in and he can eat coconut cream pie, that's what he wants to do. We have the other person that Becky spoke of that wants to go out and then have some ground, live in the woods.
Yeah.
The challenge there, you're gonna have to drive on a crappy road and you have no water. And then we have others, a family that's gonna come in here, they're gonna have 2 or 3 kids, 3's probably a big one. But they want some space for their kids, their dog, and maybe a billy goat in the backyard.
Yep.
So we have, I think, a whole diverse group, that I can't say, in my opinion, that we need to target any one given area. Everything's somewhat of a challenge, because there's a lot of people just love to have a house a few miles out of.
Sure.
I mean, David drives out to Leopold, lives in the country, and works in Tell City every day, and needs to have it. He does.
For 45 years.
Yeah, and he's got an acreage out there, he's kind of by himself, so, I mean, he doesn't offend any of his neighbors with his behavior, so.
Sure.
And there are people, Pam's same way, she was.
Me too.
I like being in the city.
Yeah, so, we don't necessarily, I think there's a need, and I think the community is pretty receptive to all of the above. I think growth is kind of critical, our schools, and if we want to get back where we're at 19, roughly 2. Right now, when I was a kid like Stan, we were probably similar population, but we've got 1,500 in prison right now. So our population of people that's outside of confinement is low.
Sure.
So we have fewer people living here. So our challenge is to get it in, not only to get the kids into the school, the money follows them. It just greases the wheel if we can get growth. And that's a real challenge.
Are any of you following Senate Bill 1?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I printed the new amendment off 300 and some odd
I have
pages this
numbers,
morning.
I actually got numbers, so I got numbers too.
Have they released the new fiscal amendment yet?
I think so.
Don't they have to decide on that by tomorrow?
Tomorrow's the
Yeah,
last
tomorrow.
one, once it goes into general.
Yep.
Hold on, I'll open it up.
It's engrossed, but,
But see, you're actually, you're gonna target the county. Okay. And it's property tax related, and I think the last amendment, they were taking out personal property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we get the jobs, build the plant, it's gonna have the jobs, we have to get people to locate here, or we'll not be able to collect the local income tax. So that is crucial.
and one of the big challenges with at least the amendment that was considered, what's today? Wednesday, it's on Monday. The business personal property, there's so many bonds that were issued, debt taken out based on the revenue that was anticipated from their business personal property, that now there's, great concerns that quite a few bonds could go belly up. They could default.
And the county guaranteed them, I bet you. Which means
The county or the city or the town, yeah.
the tax revenue and another source. is gonna be forced to pay for it.
Yeah, for the county, we're at, so right now we're at, just for the Perry County, we're at 4,634,460.
That would be your hit.
And then we're gonna go to 4,763. But to understand that we're not gonna be getting less, but we were projected to be at 4,948,924. So we're gonna have an increase of 128, but we're expecting, it is actually based off of the old law,
You're saying it's gonna affect our growth.
it's gonna affect our growth,
That's what it
yes.
is.
Which they basically taken several different bills and put it all in place in one.
Yeah.
And see, part of this problem is, I had this discussion, and they should be aware of this. The county's revenue source for property tax is minimal, and the increase is minimal.
Right.
Okay, what has happened during COVID, price of these homes has went up. So they did their trending. Now all of a sudden your home value has went up. The property tax burden then shifted to the homeowners and the farmers who had some good years and have paying outrageous prices for farm ground. So the farmers now are picking up the tab on it too. The actual revenue coming back to the county, I think last year, 170,000. Is that right? Well, we collected additionally on property tax. Our property tax rate has went down the last 3 or 4 years, every year. It just keeps going down because we're still under the Bowen freeze.
Right.
And so we're not gaining the money, but now we somewhat as a county entity become the target for the state, and it's easy to give away our money, without consequences to the state.
I think it's forced efficiency, that when you're already trying to
Well,
be as efficient as you
we're already
can,
down-
you're
going down
really
that path.
getting cut. I mean, they need to hammer the ones that are not.
Well, that and unfunded mandates are still going to be a thing. Those are gonna continue, those aren't gonna stop.
Well, I mean, it's like we run our jail and we all, it's just like everybody gets a pulper attorney. Sometimes they get 2 or 3 in a family. And that comes directly out of the county's revenue.
And even on the juvenile
Yep.
side,
Housing the
we have
juvenile.
to do the juvenile housing, and that is not cheap.
It's been over that years before us, I'm not gonna put it because.
Along that line, it's not directly economic development related, but it does have an impact on the overall, health and vitality of the community. Are you having to contract out housing of individuals in the jail to other entities?
Our jail's big enough, it's new enough, it's fine.
We are bringing people in.
All we
Yeah,
are,
okay, so
Not
you're.
so much used to.
Attitude, they're not doing it as much anymore. We gotta
we did Vanderbilt County,
We
and
have capacity
Vanderbilt County
for it.
expanded their jail and then.
Yeah.
But we do have to house our juveniles outside.
You just have to go to Vincennes.
And I think there's some over hospital.
Yeah.
But we should. Hopefully that's all.
You think I ain't too long.
Okay, so in terms of priorities, if, and I'd like to hear from both the council and the commissioners. I know, I talked to the commissioners a couple weeks ago, we talked through some of their priorities. And, included the gravel roads, addressing the utilities and road conditions, community engagement was talked about. But if you, as the council and the commissioners, had, say, 3 things that you want to accomplish over the next 12 months, what would those 3 things be? How would you measure success moving this initiative forward?
Are you asking for commissioners, you asking for council?
I'm asking for both. I'd like to hear the council's side and I'd like to hear the commissioners as well, because I think we're gonna hear some synchronous answers, but I wanna see what that.
Mine would be roads, water, and new industry.
And whenever we go to measure this, we don't have to have every gravel road paved, but we need to initiate a
Make
plan,
progress.
and we need to at least start somewhere with something.
Proper
And-
planning is key.
And then, I mean, and actually, I really don't wanna just go through the motions and say, hey, we got this great plan.
Right.
We need to put it in place.
Absolutely.
Whatever we have to do to make that happen. Now, I'm gonna throw one other thing out. And I don't know whether you can do this or not. We have over 60,000 acres of future national forests.
1/4 of them.
They pay little no tax to us at all. They also, Stan mentioned the CDB, they won't pay our Convention and Visitors Bureau tax either for entities that come in and rent camper spots and things like that, they won't do it. We basically, our revenue is very, very small in that area. What we have to do when we build our water line through, if we have to build 2 miles of water line through the national forest, there will be no customers, just an expense. to get to the other side to serve the public.
Sure.
So it makes it prohibitively expensive to run that water line through. Now, I met with the DNR, and they were telling me in the state forest that they had cabins built out of Branchville. And they took these cabins and took little groups of that and stuck them in their forest. They're kind of primitive, they're not anything people like. But they did this, they got their money back in 18 months, what they paid for a cabin.
Okay.
And if we could get the federal government to allow that to happen, we're already building this paved road through there that has no offshoots. But if they would allow us, and maybe as a group, drop in 8 or 10 cabins in one entry where they could come in and actually use water, we could find somebody in the community that would actually manage them and operate them. But it would allow consumption on that water line. We have Holiday World that drags in an enormous amount of people. If we can divert them 15 or 20 miles into the national forest to stay another couple of days, it could make a big difference revenue-wise, utilization of the water lines, and people that would come in and spend money.
Yeah.
Next thing I'd love for you to do, we have, and I don't know whether this is true, but I heard that there's a restriction, either you're walking or you're riding a bicycle. It's about all they allow you to do in the forest. And someone had an electric bike out there, and they fined it.
Like an
Now-
electric assist.
Yes.
Okay.
Stan, he needs his electric bike.
Well, just like when you go to
Just start riding.
Oh, yeah, I'm an easy part.
So with that said, today, let's take a look at all of our Americans, we're a little too old, a little too fat, we're not in shape. An electric assisted bike or something to that nature would allow a lot more people to visit and travel through that. So I think it would serve their purpose too, but for some reason that just seems to be an obstacle. And the next big thing is if we can ever get a place to ride your ATVs
Yep.
in the forest.
I'm gonna tell you
And
something.
even if they say only this section, this path, this road, this, and we can cut it off if it's too muddy, or we'll do something. But if they even consider to allow that, we could bring people in for some distance.
There's a place in Illinois that, and I can't think of the name of it, but all the people I know that have these razors and all this, during the summers, that's all you see going down the road, and they're headed to that place. And they come back and them things are muddy, you can't even tell what it is.
I know, but that mud represents to me, as next member of the Soil and Water Board, erosion. This county is hugely susceptible to erosion. We have fought and got this county in good shape.
How do we deal with that, Brad? There's got to be a way.
Well, there's going to be a compromise there someplace, like you said, with all the restrictions, that when you make restriction, there's always that goofball that will run off the road and find that mud puddle, because they like it. They like to throw that dirt up in the air. And again, that's harmful to the erosion, it's harmful to wildlife, it's a slippery slope you gotta be very careful about.
Give it a certain area and we'll make sure we can deal with it. I mean, it doesn't have to be over everything we've got. In some way, and again, try it.
Right.
It may be something that just doesn't work. But if we never turn, if you never have an opportunity to see whether you can work out the details, and address, I think that's important, that we don't create things that causes another issue for something else.
Right.
Don't have to close the idea, but keep that in mind.
I think signage is another important issue, just that you're coming off the interstate and you're just driving, you may not even notice that there is all the Hoosier National Forest, because there is nothing really promoting or saying
They don't.
what's there. No, now that,
That's not their mission though, is it? I mean,
No.
the recreation part is an aggravation to their mission, I believe.
They're just locking you out. When I was out in Yellowstone about a year ago, and And actually, when I paid for something, I had a county tax on my bill. So there's revenue coming in to the county that was located in. And they had all kinds of different activities. Now, whether they were ran by the Forest Service, I don't know, or private, but they had hotels and all kinds of things along the way that you could stop and participate in. It wasn't like Las Vegas, but they did have some activities. So are those options available for the Hoosier National Forest? Because pretty much now, we have our lakes, you can come in and camp in some of them, and besides biking, they let horses in. And
They tear
horses
up
will
more.
create, an issue as far as erosion too. But, I think that's been acceptable. I don't know how many people are, so they've managed to deal with that.
Yeah, that
Trailer
would be nice,
sites used to have
get some revenue, yeah.
Is that still open?
I think so, maybe it's all their sign.
Well,
I don't
but
think-
those, they go all the time.
Has the county ever pursued funding through the Land and Water Conservation Fund or the outdoor recreation legacy program?
Never heard of it.
The only
So,
ones that, I don't know, the Soil and Water Conservation Group, I know they pursued some grants for that Deer Lake out there.
Yeah, their lake is just a mess.
I don't know
Oh,
who's through
gosh.
where they got the thing.
The dam's cracking and everything else.
Well, it's not so much that, it's a state agency, who's supported by the county, who leased property on federal ground to have a watershed project that is an earthen dam that's now reached its 50-year expected limit. It's in pretty good shape, very honestly. It's not leaking.
It's not taken care of, and no less, not mowed or anything else.
It's mowed twice a year.
Oh, boy.
Well, I mean, yeah, and the trouble is every time you do something like on there, you can't spray to get rid of that bush or, you just can't use poisons unless there's.
Cause erosion.
Yeah, and all this kind of stuff. There's so many things you have to deal with. We had the state, we had our local soil and water board out on the dam one day, and we had the state boys there, and we had the Hoosier National Forest and the federal people, and they were all like, who could take charge of this? Because it's such a mishmash that was originally started by the RC&Ds that don't exist anymore, and it was passed to the soil and water board because the same people were on the boards. And we have to sign a lease constantly that says that if we don't maintain it out there and take care of the monitoring, actually have monitoring that's done, I think out west someplace. And I just got a notice on my phone the other day because they haven't taken me off the list whenever it was getting ready to go over the spillway, et cetera. So it's monitored constantly. We gotta, every 2 years, they've got to do a engineering study that costs about $5,000 or $7,000. And then essentially it's monitored constantly.
See, they converted that into a high hazard thing. Originally, when it was built in the 70s, it was not that classification. But the state of Indiana, DNR came in and changed those classifications.
Because there's a house there, at one point in time, there was a single house down below it. If it was to break, it would flood. It is an earthen dam with a concrete outflow, okay? So that's pretty good condition. And yeah, every 2 years, they do an engineering study to make sure that it is. But there was a single house down below it that would have a wall of water hit it that was like 4 foot high. And of course, that would have been a danger to life and limb, et cetera. And since then, I think they've included a lot of people all the way down to Rocky Point in it as far as flooding. So again, it's not something that can go away. I don't think the county wants it to go away because it saves a lot of culverts and bridges and things on down there.
Slows the water.
Slows the
All
water.
those dams do that. It catches it, releases it slowly over a period of time. I mean, a lot of our flooding stopped once they put all of those in the facilities. Because we used to have a lot of flash flooding.
You should see the water it's holding right now. Oh my goodness, it's holding back. Yeah, it's higher than it's ever been since I was involved in it. And it was just about to go and just about to stop. So
They work.
they were.
Something that happens kind of probably off topic a little bit, but Ivy Tech, our community college, I think plays a big role in just the community in general in our schools, giving them some additional education opportunities. I would like to see them involved in our plan also.
They had an actual, now that Pam brought that up, I don't know if that program's still in place, but a student could actually go 2 years here in Kansas City and then go to IU, Purdue, another state school, and end up getting a 4-year degree from them. So it took someone that could live at home, get their 2 years in, and then only have to pay 2 years.
I think they do a lot for the community. I just don't want to leave them out of the student loans.
Sure.
I'm sure there's things we're missing and it's not intentional. So let's just put that out there.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is just good for us to kind of get.
I like to see more for our youth
Yep.
here in the county. Let's say 15 and under, 16 and under.
Okay.
I mean,
We hear that a lot.
right now, we hear a lot, what is it? You got bowling alley and movie.
Just things, encourage, incentivize whatever new businesses to come in that
Yeah,
kind of cater to that maybe even or something. I don't know. I mean, I know it's a private sector, we're not in the business of starting an arcade or a skating rink.
Sure.
The government will not do that, but we can incentivize or encourage people to come in and do those things.
Childcare is the same way,
Yeah.
affordable childcare.
Yeah, I was childcare.
We have a lot of
If you don't fix it, we're not gonna be able to attract anybody.
So
It's less than.
you have more children than you do have spots.
Yeah, most of our just are
A lot
private
of the,
providers.
private in-home providers. We have
and a lot of those.
Not a lot of large facilities.
But supporting the private income is not a bad thing.
Yeah, I think that's okay too.
I mean, they really, my kids grew up, we found a lady that's willing to watch it. Which is great.
It's difficult to find anybody because of the state freedom down there.
See, and that's the
Yeah,
problem right there.
Even the ones that aren't licensed still have the state freedom down there. So
For sure.
I think there's some lobbying needs down there on this and that on that.
Statewide, how,
It's affordable.
statewide, how's that industry? I mean, I've heard all kinds of horror stories associated with
It's a
even,
challenge.
do they make money or do they always have to be subsidized by the county they're in?
You're, that is the $1 million question. We actually just finished a study in West Central Indiana. It was a partnership between Ivy Tech and Indiana State University. We looked at child care in West Central Indiana. So that's Vermilion, Vigo, Clay, and Sullivan counties. Ultimately, what the study found was there were, I get the exact number wrong, but there were roughly 1,100 parents that could go back to the workforce if they had safe and reliable childcare for their kids. And the amount of childcare spots that are open or available versus the demand, it wasn't quite 3 to 1, but the demand was much higher than the output. And so, now, that's not saying that all of those parents would go back to the workforce, it's saying they could go back. So that because they wouldn't, mom or dad wouldn't have to stay at home to watch the kids.
I know my daughter's in Evansville, works for Deaconess, they do their own daycare, and they're still, even within a closed system, they still have
That's a
a
challenge.
result similar to what you just described.
Ascension has the same issues, they have a similar system for their healthcare workers, and it's tough in Evansville, it's really tough.
Well, Corey's the one, you've got 4 kids, right? 3. And his wife said that the insurance, or not the insurance, it was because it's an insurance, Farm Bureau, what it would cost them, if they had to go pay the weekly, because then it would be worth any work. But again, that's one of the things that I don't know that the community needs to subsidize that, but if there's a way for them to have the lady on the corner that's got 2 kids that can watch a couple kids or whatever, some way where that is a more professional, acceptable. I mean, I can remember my kids, we had a lady, she had a playground in the backyard, she kept Our older one daughter and one other child, and that was it. She just loved the crap out of kids. She was super. We were fortunate. But, I mean, if they're out there, I don't know, things have changed. I'm as old as Stan almost.
Well, and it is very, very tough, because not everyone wants to do
You'll get
it
there
in
if you're lucky.
daycare. Not everyone's comfortable with
And the other
that.
thing, if you're not from that area, you don't know them, you may not.
It makes a difference there because our community is small.
Yeah,
We
we know.
generally know.
I did that in home and I loved it, but I knew who it was, so for me, it was comfortable.
And it's trust.
Moving in,
And
yeah.
if you move here to work at one of the facilities, then
Yeah,
you may not be comfortable.
yeah. And then we have the different shifts, I can get into that.
Yeah, that's a lot
The
of.
night shift where they don't take care of kids.
Right now.
Yeah, are there any childcare facilities or childcare homes that do?
I mean, I'm
Alternative
sure there
status.
has to be something for all these people that are working, but I don't, it must be in home or relatives or somebody.
What about the one that?
I don't think it's open enough.
He owns one or
The-
the other.
the-
I think if
Where-
they're,
where-
they were,
But it,
I think they were originally.
it started out as like a,
But the volume wasn't there.
And they still run the,
That's my understanding.
Do people pay income tax on child care? You're taking
Or
care
even
of
if
it,
you
you
rent
get paid.
You have to turn it in. You
Yeah, just
can.
turn it
See, that's something they should stop.
Has to be a licensed
That's,
professional.
yeah, that's something that they stop.
and then there's different pathways to quality, PTQ level, 1, 2, 3, 4. So part of what that study that we did, West Central Indiana, part of that study was looking at how do we elevate the pathways to quality for childcare. And that's going to involve lobbying, it's going to involve, advocacy at the state, federal level, it's going to involve, changing public policy, working
and
with
to be
local
fair, I think
legislators.
PCD's supposed to do that, before, so.
So,
Whatever it takes to look at that, because he's right, it's gonna be difficult to get young families to move in if they don't know where to take their.
Not only that, we don't have an environment that encourages people to have more than one child. I had three in daycare at one time. I'm not gonna pay $1,000 a week
right.
for daycare. Can't do it, so it's not feasible for my wife to work. It's not feasible for that
I did want to mention something I had, something wrote down there anyway, to my mind is, we have the river, we have the rail, we have the interstate, and we're within 3 hours driving distance of Cincinnati, St. Louis, Indianapolis, and Nashville. That has to be, attractive to some of these places that,
That's where if we can get out on the
I mean,
interstate, you're on.
to me it is, it's a day trip. I can just go and come back for a weekend or whatever. It's so nice, I love it here.
Yep.
I can come back to my quiet life and then go to the city if you want to and spend the weekend or the day or whatever, go shopping in Nashville, the mall or wherever, and drive back home if you don't want to stay. Well, I mean, I'm just saying, that's attractive to me.
Yeah.
To be able to do that. And I think young people would think that's a really good thing. You can go to the St. Louis Zoo or the Cincinnati Zoo or go catch a ball game or, drive to Indianapolis. It's all within a day. You can go and come back.
I don't know if we can utilize
I think we
our
don't
river
capitalize
further
on
out
that.
because of the river coming up and down. I mean,
They're very
it'll be tough. There's probably ways of doing it, but,
Well, it don't
river
happen,
rail.
well, every year.
Access. We need to really capitalize on that.
This is historic here.
Just like Volvo's canceling Thunder Ohio this year.
Well, yeah,
But
that
that's
happens.
billions of dollars that they're losing, that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Occasionally.
It doesn't very.
On the
One
off
thing you need to be aware of, we do have a port here. And they were, just as an example, and I didn't realize it didn't be competitive, but they were bringing cement in from over in Illinois by barge.
Okay.
And they were unloading it, and they were just putting it on the floor in one of the warehouses up there.
Okay.
But they lost too much as far as sellable material, so that stopped. So I don't know what other opportunities, port-related, if the facilities were upgraded, where we could offload different materials.
So does the county have a port authority?
Mhm.
Okay. So there is actually a grant program out right now for port infrastructure, where you can either plan for improvements or you can actually implement improvements. So it's capacity building, it's, technology investments, it's port infrastructure, the physical port itself, I don't want to say secondary facilities, but I mean support facilities for that port. So that's an opportunity that's out there right now.
See, we have the river and we have the railroad right there with it. So we can get it out to the major lines.
Right.
And we can offload it, there at the river, take it out by truck.
Also, I will touch base with my team on that on my way home and talk to them about that port infrastructure grant, because I think that would be a great program to help.
Right, just if they could start identifying other product lines that make sense to offload.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like, even in Evansville down there where you have a port, you come in and you unload it and you're in the middle of the town. And then you gotta try to get the trucks in and out or whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
We don't have that issue. You drop it off, they can be on the road and out of here quick. Or it can be put on rail. They're going through the updating of the rail lines right now, so they can take the high capacity cars.
Okay.
So they can take it up, fill one up, our locomotives aren't too powerful, so it won't be a long one. But they can get it up.
Sure.
From there, so it's not a disadvantage to have a lower tonnage car, so.
We also have an airport, a small airport. There was a grant opportunity they were looking for help with, right?
Yeah, they were gonna get a taxiway.
Okay.
They are lined up to where they can get funding, like 95% of it paid for. Because right now it's only a single, you use the taxiway and the runway is the same. The federal government is gonna get 95% of the cost of it.
It's like $5 million. Yeah. But they were looking for.
5% is 250,000. What?
Who's a good contact for the airport?
Ken Rowland.
He's been out there probably longer than Dean Borders was there, but he passed away.
What is
They have a
the
forward
implications of that airport? Because I know they spent some money increasing the length of that runway.
They did that so that they could, I think, actually land the Founders.
Small jets.
Yes. And then, from what I was told, that the Kentucky folks renovated theirs, made a nice little lounge for the pilots.
And that's the drew 'em over?
You got the idea. They'd rather fly into to that one and the pilots hung out there rather than ours was a little sketchy.
Yeah,
So,
not much there, yeah.
so I think that's how, they lost that one. So maybe that could be negotiated to get back. I don't know exactly, where the boundary is with the new owners.
There's some truck vendors there. Just wheel up.
I just had 3 things wrote down that when we were discussing last year, David had asked, I wasn't on redevelopment last year, he had asked at some point last year to the council, because that's what the direction the redevelopment was wanting to hear from the council, the commissioners, the cities, the towns, Troy, Hill City, Hanson, what they think the needs are so that they can evaluate those. But I had additional rental options, whether it's townhomes, duplexes, condos, 55 plus senior communities. Then of course all the utilities, we were talking about the broadband and the cell service to underserved areas and extending the water lines. And then just, I harp on this a lot, but the Blythe property redevelopment. I think it's important. I just think I'm not gonna buy a house next to a bunch of stuff that needs to be bulldozed or cleaned up. And so if we don't address those things and just continue to turn our heads and say, somebody else can deal with it, it's just, I just think the areas around it's gonna continue to grow and spread, and we're gonna have bigger problems, so.
Sure.
I just want to say that.
That's good. Well, I know we've got 12 minutes left from our scheduled time. I always like to be respectful of everybody's time and make sure we're not going over. But just the amount of information that we kind of walked through today has been very helpful. Is there anything that we haven't talked about or that you haven't shared that you think we need to know before we wrap up?
Does anybody know about the comprehensive plan that was paid big bucks for it back in 2014.
I looked at it and it looks like it has not been changed. I mean, it's probably so outdated. It's,
But we had, if you
we're
pull up,
trying to put one together, I think.
if
when we
you
say
pull
these
up
things.
that plan and you pull up the one before it, pull up the one before it,
So, yeah.
it's the same issues, it gets
Yep.
ignored.
Yep.
I think it's a requirement to have that plan tool for eligibility.
For grants, yes.
And so they just go through the motions and do it. They don't ever seriously sit down and say, hey, it's unlikely we'll have a professional football team, so let's not put it in there. Let's put something in that we can actually achieve.
Yeah.
And then, and I'm a guy that wants to set certain expectations, as far as this is how we determine we have success in this respect.
Yep.
And I want to have, a way to measure it and a timeline.
Yep.
I don't want to sit in here and say, okay, we need to do this. Well, we need to do this in the next 6 months.
Yeah.
And how we're going to do it is step by step by step. And then we're going to measure, we're going to set our expectations prior to leaving the gate.
Yeah.
We don't want to set our expectations at the end of the project.
Yeah.
Because then we can modify them and pat ourselves on the back that we were successful.
Right.
We need to set expectations, and then if we deliver it at the end, we'll pat ourselves on the back. If not, we'll review it and say, where did we mess up? What did we do wrong? Do we want to do this again, or do we want to do it in a different fashion? So we don't continue to build upon error, if that's what we're doing. When you actually get these opportunities, this is one thing I know we talked about before, we need to determine why we lost that opportunity. Is our ground too hilly? Is our water not sufficient? Is our workforce the error that caused our problem with this, or whatever it is? So that we can look and we can say, here's what we need to be targeting, and here's the area that we are required to work towards, so that the next time an opportunity comes down the pipe, we can be more competitive.
Sure.
But if we don't understand and actually slice and dice those problems, we'll never change it, and we'll end up with the same result.
A lot of times, communities struggle with exactly what you're talking about. They have a plan that was done to meet a minimum requirement. It's not based in reality. It's not, there's no timeline, there's no real implementation strategy on, okay, these are the things that need to happen and this is the order in which they need to happen. It's not good enough, and it's not helpful just to say short, mid, and long-term goals. It really needs to be broken down into, okay, what do we do year 1? What do we do year 5? What do we do year 10? Because that plan is really meant to be a 20 to 25 year vision, but it's supposed to be updated every 5 years, recommended every 5 to 10 years. When I started working in Brownsburg, we had a comp plan that was done in 2001. I started working there in 2003. 2012, we finally got the council to agree to let us update the plan. And the reason I say finally is the comp plan that was developed was not based in reality. It wanted this really vibrant downtown that was walkable and had all these shops and dining opportunities. But then the land use regulations prohibited all of that. So you had this contradictory, you had the plan that was saying this is what we want, and you had the regulation that said that's not permitted. So 2012, we updated the plan, did a complete refresh, and from that day forward, that plan was used every single day to, as we evaluated decisions, as we, said, okay, well, this is the next project that we want to accomplish. Where does that fit within this plan? And so every day we're checking things off and making sure we're moving forward. In such a fast manner that by 2016, we had to do an update because we'd already accomplished so much in the plan.
Great.
So it's critically important that implementation.
And see, as an example, in our case, we had a study done for the sewer lines out of the interstate.
And that's where it's at.
And that's where it's
Where
at.
it's
And,
at.
and so, we spent $70,000.
Which is so frustrating.
Yeah, and there was never, what's step 1 is the plan, step 2 is implementing, step 3 is building. I mean, and if we don't have the funding or even an inkling as to where we're going to get the funding for the sewer line, why are we studying this? I'd say, hey, we know, we can find it, because I went online at the time and looked what other similar communities have done. And I got a general idea of what it would cost to put in a system right there. So then that discussion needs to be held first, and I don't remember 2, 3, 4 million, whatever it amounted to.
Right.
Where is the funding going to come from? If we cannot put our hands on $4 million, why are we going to study this only to fail? And so where are we gonna fund it from? If we can come up with that answer, let's study it and then let's go.
We were talking about development quarter, 25 years ago.
And see, we're still out there and saying, we have the interstate there and it's never been done.
And no buggies.
Oh, well, I think somebody mentioned
Right, no
being realistic there. But I might be categorized.
Is that right there with the professional football team?
Yeah, put it in that, yeah.
I don't think anybody would want to take that on. You know,
The
because
Bucky's are the pro.
I did add it to the notes, no, I drive over here to get a barbecue sandwich. Maybe some.
How many other people could you bring over? See if you could get a commitment from 100,000.
I'll just bring them all over from there, so we'll get a, you know, a bunch of buses, we got it. It's not that far. Oh, they would, people would.
All this information's been helpful, and what Megan and I will do is we're gonna go back and kind of compile our notes. I wanna go through and look at all of the priorities that were listed, the challenges, and then we will formulate a strategy for this next year. And then I will share that out with everybody. A couple of things that I wanted to cover before we break up here. One, just what you can expect from communication from us. So as we're navigating a project like Project Falcon, I will give you updates as we're moving along, as we have information that comes in from a client, not a client, but a prospective industry. You'll get regular communication from me or someone on my team. In addition, we will provide monthly reports to the commissioners and council, just talking about what we did the last 30 days, what's coming up over the next 30 days, so that you can continually see that progress and use that almost as a report card on how we're doing. Are we meeting the mark, or are we not? I want to encourage you all to just pick up the phone if you have a concern, or if there's something that you hear that doesn't sit right with you. Please just let us know. I want to be a resource for you. We want to succeed for you so that you can succeed in your goals. So don't ever hesitate to pick up the phone. Related to Project Falcon, just to give everybody an update, we received a estimate on some proposed tax abatements that they would like to pursue. Right now, they only need a letter from the county saying that they're open to that kind of tax incentive. They're not asking for a commitment on what that is yet, because they don't know the final dollar amount of the investment. Right now, it looks like the investment would be somewhere around $50 million. That's personal and real property investment. But we'll essentially need to provide them a letter that says, and I talked to John Shear 2 weeks ago with redevelopment regarding the $200,000 that they had committed towards the project, or were willing to commit towards the project. He said that there could be some additional money available from that fund, and that they would be open to that. No decisions have been made, and so I'm not, stating that, but I want to make sure that I'm being transparent with all of you moving forward. So we would look to, and I can draft the letter. It's not a letter of commitment. It's just a letter confirming that we are open to having those kind of conversations, and this is potentially what you could get. But that it would have to go through the public process. The hearing would have to be held. All those steps would have to check those boxes.
And that would come from the council.
So it would, the letter could either come from It was written, the draft letter that I saw was written from the redevelopment commission, but since the redevelopment commission doesn't give abatements, it should come from the council.
Council's gonna have to.
They're the one that has to pass it, in which I'm not sure why it was written from the redevelopment commission's standpoint, but I can draft that, circulate a copy so that everybody can see it, and then Kelly, I'm not sure if the council needs to take formal action to authorize that letter to be signed, but.
I would do it, just get it.
We have a
out.
meeting,
Just-
yeah,
Okay,
That
when's
way
the
it's-
next meeting?
24th.
24th, okay.
Yep.
So I will,
I mean, if we need to have a special one, we can do it 48 hours.
okay.
Yeah.
Let me,
And any information you can send on the project, I know that it's confidential, and I know about as much as
Yeah.
what you're saying here,
yeah. no,
so
and
I don't know, you
There's
know.
information that I can share with you.
I realize that it's
Is
confidential,
there,
but,
is there
you know,
any
we
kind
don't,
of a date or deadline or what the artists are shooting for?
Well, they're itching to make a decision here soon, you know, within
Soon
the
as
next
a
couple.
month, 2 months?
I would say less than a month, is what they're looking
well,
to
if we
make
need
a
to have a
decision.
special meeting, it's
So-
within 48 hours, so.
Okay, well, let me draft that letter, and circulate that, just so everybody can see it. And then if we can have a special meeting to get that approved, again, just to approve the letter, you wouldn't be approving the actual abatements. But just.
It would just
You're
say
just
that if
authorizing
somebody was
those.
willing to invest this much money, we would be
We would
willing
go
to
into
consider,
yes, we
potentially
would-
consider abating
Yeah.
parts of it or
Parts of
whatever
it,
it looks
yeah.
like.
Yeah, and I can send you the estimate that they provided as well for the abatement. So I will do that. But anything like that, you know, again, I will be providing you updates.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and it's saying that we're supportive of the project and that, you know, we would, in the eyes of the local elected officials, this is a great investment for the county, so. But the developer's been great to work with, been very responsive and, you know, working through all of their priorities and challenges that they've got, but just want to give that a brief update here.
I'd like to say something. I want to thank you, both of you, for being so open, having this meeting, asking what we think this county needs. We've never been asked that before. And I appreciate it.
Absolutely, well,
I appreciate it.
you know, this, like I said at the beginning, you're more than just a client, you're more than just a number. And we want to make sure that the only way we're successful is if you're successful. And so we look at this as a partnership. I know a lot of people will say that, but we truly do value what you've entrusted us to do. And we want to be a resource for all of you. So if I can ever be of assistance, or if you have a question and it's 10 o'clock at night, don't hesitate to call me. I'm usually up for it. So-
You made a serious mistake. Yeah, not me, no, I go to bed.
Kelly is up all
I
night.
did text her the other night at like 10 o'clock and I was like, oh, she'll get this in the morning.
You
Nope.
haven't got the 1 o'clock.
Yeah, wait till 1.
Yeah.
No, I won't.
Yeah, 1 or 2 o'clock in
Just
the morning,
email.
call them.
Yeah.
No, she won't text.
She's, yeah.
No, just email.
Don't ever
You're gonna get
accept
it out of
that.
your brain. Well, I just want to say I appreciate you guys coming down too, and I think, it's easy to get overwhelmed. It's easy for us to look at everything and say, we want everything under the sun. But I think if we focus our direction on specific goals and like you said, getting certain things done, then more can get done and then it'll just build upon itself. And I think that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for
More
success.
targeted.
Yes, to be targeted and, you know, so that it's just, it's very overwhelming. Yeah, to be intentional and not just say, we realize we want all of this, but if we could start somewhere and start working towards it, then we can get there.
Yeah.
So I like to see things being achieved.
I'm glad that you have a lot of resources.
Yeah.
You have a lot of resources. And, that, I'm thankful for that. I really am.
Well, and, you know, to that point, we have a lot of talented people on the RJL team that have varied experiences. And I'm really fortunate to get to work with them every day because I learn something every day too, so.
Well, just
but-
like the 2 grants you were talking about today that none of us ever heard of.
Well, I have kept you over. I appreciate everybody's time.
Thank you.
And
We need
then,
to adjourn this meeting.
and I have business cards if anybody does not get one.
Yes, I like them. Thank you.
I entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second, all those in favor?
Thank you all very much.
Steve, thank
It
you.
was a very good
Oh, you
meeting.
got one.
Thank you.
I took all kinds of. I wonder how